So Terence, this is our third conversation over the course of several years, and each conversation we've had, we've always talked about whether the world is getting to be a better place for jazz music. And in 2015, you thought we were in the dirty part of the recovery. And in 2019, you said, I think we've recovered a great deal. 3 years later, where are we?
I think we're I think it's extremely healthy. I mean, you know, you look at all of the young people who are making records and doing a lot of great things. You know, I didn't see that necessarily happening this way when I first got in the business in the 80s, you know. But to see it now, it's like extremely exciting, you know, because there are some Ambrose and Musery, you know, the list is endless. Walter Smith, Theo Crocker, you know, I mean, there's so many young people who are doing a lot of great things that I'm looking to them to see what's going to happen next.
Well, it's interesting because I listened to some of the new albums by, you know, Tashawn Sorey or Gerald Clayton or Joel Ross, and I'm struck by how there's so much calm and a quieter approach to their music right now. And I think even Absence has a lot of calm music in it. Do you think that's a coincidence, or is that sort of a reaction to the upheaval that we've experienced in the last few years?
I think it's kind of a reflection of what's happening with the where we are as a society. You know, you see with everything that's been going on. It's been interesting because within the last, what, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, we started to have demonstrations again. But prior to that, there was a lot of things going on, and we weren't in the streets like we were in the 60s, you know. But I think once we hit, well, past the 2000s, you know, people started coming out again. And I think you'll start to see that in the music. And actually, you are seeing it in the music. It's just that these guys have a different way of approaching it and dealing with it. It's not about screaming and yelling. It's about dealing with facts. You know, it's about dealing with issues and dealing with them head on. So I think that's something that's kind of reflected in what's going on with the music.
Do you think that this music, your music, their music, can affect change, whether it's more volatile music or this current phase of the calmer music?
I think it can. I think it can help affect it. I mean, because of some of the music that we were playing, you know, from the early E-Collective music. I had an experience in Cleveland where a guy came to my show and he was expecting to hear Tale of God's Will, which is all the orchestral music. And we were playing this electric music that is a lot more aggressive. And he came up to me afterwards, and when he told me that, I said, oh man, here we go. Another person who's expecting me to have like a traditional jazz band. But one of the things he said was, he said, when you told us what the music was about and how it was about gun violence, he said, my next thought was, well, if the guy who created something pretty as Tale of God's Will is playing this music and feels this way about this topic, I need to rethink my position on gun control. And that was a very powerful moment for me, because then it was evidence that music and art can have an effect on how people view the world.
Right. And you're obviously working right now with an artist who has had an impact in the world, since you're on the road with Herbie Hancock right now. Your recent album, Absence, was a tribute to Wayne Shorter. When you have been working with and around these guys who have had incredible careers, do you consider what your own legacy might be when you're at that age? And is that important to you?
I'm not thinking about it now, no, because I mean, I'm thinking about how does Herbie do what he does every night. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy, man. You know, I can't pin him down to anything. He plays differently every night, and he's always stretching, and he's always like finding new ideas. And it's pretty miraculous when you think about it, because he's 82 and he's had enough hits where he could just sit out and go out and play his hits and just be cool. But that's not what he's about. He's a true artist in terms of trying to find new things all the time.
Well, I think right now seems like it's the golden age of Terence Blanchard, because you have so much that's going so well for you right now. And I want to touch on some of that. And, you know, I'm really intrigued, and I wish I lived in San Francisco, because I know you're doing 2 nights with the Turtle Island Quartet of Music from Fire Shut Up in My Bones. Right. And I'm wondering, you know, how you're reimagining some of that music for that configuration of musicians, because I'm assuming you're doing this without any vocals.
No. We're gonna have vocals there. We're
Oh,
gonna have two
really?
vocals. Yeah.
All right.
Uh-huh.
But it's still a different, I assume it's a different, arrangement than it would be if you're performing it at the Met.
Of course, we're gonna have the E Collective and Turtle Island String Quartet. So what I've done was I love David Balakrishna's writing and arranging. So I hired him to do the arrangements, and we sat down and talked about what it is that we want to do. And because I told them, I said, I'm not trying to mimic what the orchestrations are in the opera. This is a chance for us to show the world what the E Collective in Turtle Island does along with this music, so people can reimagine this music in a different way. And I'm really excited about what he's coming up with, man, because it's going to be very unique. It's going to be very different.
Is that something that you can foresee recording at some point?
Definitely. I mean, it's something we're talking about for sure.
Because I'm sure that would, appeal to people who see the word opera and get scared.
Yes, I'm trying to demystify that. Look, it's the same thing used to happen with some of my friends when they saw the word jazz, We're like, I don't know anything about jazz. I say, I didn't ask you if you did. I just want you to come and check out the music. That's all.
Well, and isn't that, what all music, you should just go experience music, whether you like it or not, because you never know what you're going to respond to.
Of course, but in this world that we live in, man, especially in the pop culture side of our existence, there's always these kind of images that people have of whether it's jazz or whether it's opera or anything that only take a small snippet of an idea and try to portray it as being the entire thing. So people always get the wrong impression about what these things are, because a lot of my friends who had come to see the opera in New York got really excited about opera, because they'd never been before. And I was trying to tell them, I said, listen, man, you have to experience this. It's the highest form of musical theater you could ever experience in the world. Right.
You just have to really muster up the courage to do the whole ring cycle.
Well, that's a whole nother issue. We're not trying to bombard them with everything all at once. We're just trying to ease people into it.
Yeah, exactly. There are easier gateway operas, and I think that Fire.
We're just trying to get them to start off with the 45-minute operas and then kind of slowly pick up.
Right, exactly. Now, I didn't see Fire at the Met, but I was able to see it live in HD in a theater, and was profoundly moved by it. Like in a way that I don't think I'd been moved by an opera in a very long time. And it was a huge success for the Met. And I'm wondering what that says to you about new works and what impact they can have versus the classic repertoire, and maybe in particular about works by Black composers.
Well, I think really what it boils down to is just trying to be as honest as you can in your writing. One of the things Art Blakey always used to tell us something. He says, man, you never want to be too hip when you're composing music, because he said too hip's make an ass. That was always his thing, and it's one of the things that I try to live my life by. I'm not trying to write music that goes over people's heads. I'm trying to write music that's right with them in their souls. And I think when you do that, the music can have an effect on people. And it's what people are looking for. It's what we need in this world. We need music that's not going to intimidate you. The other thing Art Blakey used to always say too is the easiest thing to do is to write something that nobody can understand. That's easy to do. He said the hardest thing to do is to write something that touches people in their soul and still have your own identity within it, and that's been the thing that's been driving me, throughout my career, is to be right with the public who's listening to the music, and hopefully, create something that everybody can enjoy.
Are they the first people to tell you when you got it wrong? Or if you got it wrong?
They tell me I got it wrong by the way they vote. If nobody shows up, that you got it wrong.
I will tell you that a couple of weeks ago I spoke to Walter Russell III.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Who you should know is wants to be an EGOT.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
He's 13 and he already wants to be an EGOT, and he thinks the first chance he has for that is for Fire Shut Up in My Bones to be nominated for a Grammy.
Oh, wow.
And then he would be on his first step.
Well, he was amazing, man. He was really amazing. I love Walter. This kid he's immensely talented. He can dance, he can sing, he can do it all. And he's extremely smart. I mean, this guy never missed an entrance in rehearsal, was always there, always ready to go, knew his lines, knew his music, knew everything, man. And it was just that, talk about profound. That was profound to see, because as soon as we would take a break, he turned into a kid again, making airplanes and throwing stuff and wrestling with the guy, his understudy. And then when it was time to work, he was a pro.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a bright future ahead of him.
Yes, he does.
When we spoke in 2019, which was before Fire was at the Met, you said that you were under no illusion that you are standing on the shoulders of a lot of people who didn't have the same opportunities that you did. And I'm wondering if you realize with Champion coming up next season as well, that your shoulders are the ones that are now supporting other musicians who perhaps thought that glass ceiling at the Met could never be broken.
You know, that really hasn't hit me as of yet, because I'm still thinking of William Grant still. I'm still thinking of people, you know, who should have been at the Met, you know, who deserved to be there. And when I read that ledger that was shown to me that had all of these names of rejected projects, and to see his name in that 3 times, you know, and listen to and read some of the excuses as to why his music was turned away, it's infuriating, you know, because you start to think to yourself, there's somebody who doesn't know anything about opera claiming that he doesn't know anything about opera, when actually he's revolutionizing opera with what it is that he's written, you know. So those things make me really determined to make sure that what we're doing is going to live up to the legacy of those guys, you know, and hopefully open the door for other composers to come through later on, which we already know is already happening. Peter Gelb, you know, has made it his mission, you know, to open up the doors to all different races, you know, every gender, you know, to express themselves on the Met stage, which I think has been a profound thing. And it should be an eye-opening thing for everybody across the globe, you know, in the opera world, to see that people are clamoring to see themselves on the stage.
Well, the Santa Fe Opera has a world premiere of a new opera inspired by the play M. Butterfly. So, you know, I think it's incumbent upon institutions to give opportunities,
Yes.
but also not just be one and done and say, well, I've done it.
You know, and here's the other thing too, is not only one and done, but not only be one and done with composers. You know, writing an opera, man, is a very arduous thing, obviously, but it's one thing. Like, as soon as I had written my first one and it premiered, there was a certain amount of clarity that came over me the night of the premiere that went into the development of the second one. You know what I mean? And I look at it and think to myself, had I been one and done, I wouldn't have gotten a chance to make Fire better, you know. And now with Champion going to the Met, I get a chance to go back and revisit that and even kind of beef that up based on what I did the first time. So I think it's incumbent upon these agencies, these companies, to really understand that it's really about trying to develop the talent, not just giving them a chance, but to also help them to develop their craft.
Now, you're obviously doing some revisiting of Champion. Do you foresee or do you have plans for another opera?
Oh yeah, well, the Met is going to they've commissioned me to write another one for them, but that's why we're doing Champion. Peter said he didn't want to wait 5 years for a new opera. So they're going to do Champion next year, and they may do Fire the year after that.
And then whatever the new work will be after that.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like operas can be written unless you're Mozart, and who is, except Mozart, I don't think operas can be written in just a matter of months.
No, and let's not even put that out in the ether, because I don't want anybody to have expectations about something happening, you know, in that realm.
Right. But at some point, we hope there will be another one. One of the things I love about Absence, going back to this album, is that it isn't a traditional tribute album, which I know as part, you've said before in interviews that Wayne Shorter instilled in you the idea that I don't want to hear you do what I did. I want to hear you do what you do,
Exactly.
to paraphrase.
Mhm.
Now that you're on the road with E Collective and with Turtle Island Quartet, how are you giving new life to the composition so that you aren't doing just what you did on the record, but you're doing what you need to do live?
Man, it's one of those things where those guys play differently every night. And I can't explain it to you. You have to experience it. You know, there are people who have come to hear us play, like at a club date when we play a few nights, and they come to hear us on different nights and can't believe that we're the same band, you know, because things change from night to night. And that's what I take from Wayne. That's what I take from Herbie. You know, I've been around those guys where you can't have any expectations, none, you know, because it's really about being in the moment. That's what Wayne talks about, being in the, you know, being in the unknown, reveling in it.
I know teaching is important to you. How much are you learning from guys like David Ginyard and Charles Altura and David Balakrishnan?
You can't even put it into words, because I feel blessed to be around those guys, because they bring in ideas that I never would have thought of. They're so creative in their approach, not only the composition, but improvisation, that it becomes a big challenge, man, just to be on the stage with them. Because, you know, if you make a musical statement, they respond to it in a way where now you're committed, you know, and you have to be flexible. You have to be able to just shift on a dime with these guys. And it's been a learning experience of which I'm grateful for, and feel truly blessed to be experiencing right now.
Is it nice to know at this point in your career that there's still new stuff to learn and that there always will be, or to be reminded of that?
Well, of course. I mean, I would quit if it weren't that way. I couldn't just do the same thing night after night just to make $1. No, 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 no. This is all about about uplifting my spirit and my soul, which could help other people to heal. You know, so that's really what it's about.
Right. Now, you just received an Emmy nomination for They Call Me Magic. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How different are the challenges in composing for a documentary versus composing for a narrative feature?
Well, it's very challenging because, you know, they want music to shift. You need music to make emotional shifts, but there's like words everywhere. You know what I mean? In a documentary, man, people are talking all the time. You know what I mean? So it becomes like a big challenge to try to figure out how to create an orchestration that can enhance what you're experiencing on the screen, but not get in the way of it. You know, and that's very different, because in film, you know, you may have that, but also you have the time to say things, because films, you know, they have ebbs and flows, you know, with the dialogue, and then there's moments where there's no dialogue and it's just scenery, you know, and it could just be all about the music, you know, which is beautiful. But documentaries are challenging in that regard, for sure. And having done so many of them, man, I've had to learn how to, you know, stay out of the way of the dialogue. Try to pick certain key words that I think are like really important, and make sure that I don't step on those.
Right. You're also doing, I think, if my memory serves correctly, your first quote unquote epic score for The Woman King, which I assume is all recorded and mixed, and because the film's coming out soon.
No, it's not.
Not?
No.
You haven't recorded it yet.
I'm getting ready to talk to her as soon as I finish with you guys.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear what you're going to bring to this kind of genre of a film, because it's different than what we've heard, the kind of films we've seen you do before. So what excites you most about this project and the music that you...
The exact same thing, getting a chance to write something for something that's huge, you know, having fun, creating all of these rhythmic palettes and inside of these harmonic tones, and using certain types of orchestrations and voices and stuff. You know, all of that is like extremely exciting. You know, I can't wait to get in the studio to do it. We're going to do it next week, you know, so I'm raring to go.
Well, I can't wait to hear it. But of course, you're best known in film composition for your work with Spike Lee. And in the spring in Los Angeles, the LA Philharmonic is going to do an evening of your music with, you know, for Spike Lee's films.
Mhm.
When you've done as much work as you've done for someone like Spike, how do you distill down what the music is that best represents your collaborations?
That's a tough one because it's not just what best represents that, but it's kind of like what the public has responded to as well. So we try to find a kind of a bit of a balance between those things. You know, I mean, obviously Malcolm X was a very pivotal thing to be a part of. Four Little Girls, the documentary, When the Levees Broke. You know, those are just important pieces in history. That have nothing to do with the music, but the music is such a part of it that we have to represent those in the show some type of way. And then the other ones are just basically, where the public told us, they love the ending of Black Klansman, or I can't think right now, some other scenes, and we have to make sure that those things are part of the show.
It's interesting because I think the first time I saw you live was at the Jazz Bakery, and you were touring behind your Elmer Bernstein record.
Oh yeah, jazz and film.
Yeah, which I loved, absolutely loved that. And I'm wondering, you're now at a point where another artist could do an album of your scores. Is that something that you would like to see happen?
That would be interesting because I'm always fascinated to see how other people would approach something that I've written. So that could be actually would be a cool idea.
Well, let's make it happen. Because it's just so easy as snapping our fingers, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know it's late where you are and you have other meetings, so I'm gonna make this a little shorter than I might otherwise, but I do want to ask you about something that Wayne Shorter said in a 2005 interview with Abstract Logic.
Sure.
And he said, it's okay to be vulnerable, to open oneself and take chances, and not to be afraid of the unknown. And that goes for the audience wise too, because we're going to have to deal with the unexpected from now on. How much does the unexpected inform who you are today and the work you do?
It's one of those things where you'd like to think that it's a huge part of it, because you want to be open to what's going on in the universe. But the reality of it is that we do have a style and a sound. And just by merely having a style means that you've already eliminated other things that are possible for you to play because you're playing within a context, and that's what dictates your style. So for me, again, it goes back to that whole thing of finding balance between all of those things, allowing yourself to be in the moment, allowing yourself to be free to respond to things that you may not have thought of, but are really a part of what's going on in the music at that time, because that's one of the things that we have to do as a community as well. I always think jazz is probably the best representation of how we should live as a community. We all have ideas about what it is that we want to do, but at a certain point in the music, it's really about the music. So I have to throw away some of our ideas if they're not relevant to what's going on at that particular time. And that in itself is a thing that excites me because it keeps you on your toes and it keeps you guessing and it keeps you, what's the word? It makes you quick. It keeps you moving.
Well, I, for one, am grateful for all the choices you've been making because it's enriched my life, and I can't wait to be at the show at the Ford, which I think is August 9th.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it, man. I can't wait.
Well, sounds good. Well, get onto your other calls and get some sleep.
What's that?
It's something that you occasionally do.
Right.
Good to see you, Terrence. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.